Alright, so as I've said multiple times, the plan with the Golf initially was to just maintenance as much stuff as I possibly can. And well, as discussed in the last video, I've done your basic oil change, fuel filter, air filter, cabin filter, you name it, oil filter. That work's all been done. That's stuff you do the moment you buy a car. But now, I've got a bit more maintenance undergoing. These right here are standard control arms out of a Mark IV Golf, and although low mileage, these have been in the car for nearly 22 years now. As you can see, this rear bushing, let's see, completely collapsed. You should not even be close to being able to pull that out by hand. You can see how off-center that bush is as well. Coming along, obviously just some corrosion. This bushing here, not too bad. So we make our way back here, you notice some grease leaking out of the side here of the ball joint. And yeah, just generally, I mean, physically this metal is fine. It's not rusty enough to worry about it. But I'm going to be replacing the entire arm. So let's have a quick comparison of what a brand new one looks like next to it. So although for the opposite side of the vehicle, it should be pretty obvious, the bushing is completely centered and pressed in. This bushing here as well is brand new and looking much nicer. We make our way up here, we've got brand new ball joints as well, not leaking anything, and all in all just looks a general amount nicer. Not again that we're too concerned about the way it looks, but this will handle and perform a lot better, and the knocking that I was getting from the front right caused by this bush will go away. Well, hopefully. While we're at it, I've taken it into account that I should put some sort of rust protection, which I've done to the subframe there. You can see it's nice and black again. We're getting a lot of surface corrosion and flaking, so I went around with like a bit of sandpaper and like an air hammer just to get off the loose chips, and yeah, coated it with that sort of stuff, so hopefully that helps protect it. Again, not that generally in Australia the conditions are going to promote rust, but if there's a bit of rust there to begin with, let's seal it so we can at least protect it for the next few years before we repeat the process. Those of you with a keen eye will also notice that alongside the lower control arms missing, we're also missing our CV axles. Let's have a look at those. CV inners are actually in good condition, but let's face it, we're going to be pretty pedantic with this car. This is one I want to keep for a long time, being that how rare it is, so I want to do everything right the first time around instead of cheaping out and having to redo things. So if we make our way out to the outer joint here, you'll notice that this clamp is on an angle and it's been leaking fluid. It's slightly split and leaking fluid out the back there of the back clamp. This one here, the actual boot is in fact separated there. So I'm getting the outer boots replaced. I'm actually going to let my mechanic mate do this. I don't feel like playing with CV grease for the sake of it. I would rather give someone some beer and call it a day. So that's the front CV axles. I'm getting the boots redone on those. I was also going to do the sway bar bushes. However, as you can tell, they don't look bad at all. And when I tried to refit the ones that I had purchased, I do believe they are the wrong side. The diameter of this sway bar and the internal diameter of that bushing all read 23 millimeters. The bushings I had supplied read 21, and I could not get that clamp to press back shut with that in it. But whilst digging my traditional standard, put a car in the workshop, plan to leave it in here for a couple of days while I do some work on it, has quickly escalated. And as to be expected, I now have a few more projects that I want to do. So I'm expecting that I am going to do brakes on this thing, as well as probably install a set of coilovers while it's in here on jack stands for probably the next month or so. So although very tempting, I was going to install a set of max speeding rods. Currently, with an eBay sale that's on, I can actually get them for 260 Australian dollars delivered to my doorstep. A price that's, well, almost impossible to skimp on. That's just ridiculously cheap. However, I did have them in my Bora, and although the ride quality was, to be completely honest, not that bad. I did have a noisy strut front left. I had a noisy, creaky strut front right. And well, I wouldn't mind a dampening adjustment, as well as being able to actually change spring load. Not just basing like the height on the spring load. I'd rather be able to adjust those separately. So I think I'm going to go a set of BCs for this thing. I think a set of BCs plus Porsche twists, some spacers, push and flush out with the guards should make this thing sit really nice. Otherwise as well, while it's in here, the main brake booster hose injector seals and bolts, and a timing belt kit as well as a new water pump. So I got a set of hoses here, as you can see, brand new one at the bottom, old one at the top. If we make our way over to the end here, nice connection on this one, whereas if we get this in the lighting, that's a massive vacuum leak right there. So that's one thing I wasn't actually planning on doing today. However, there's really not that much more I need to do to this car. Currently right now, I could put the control arms back in, but to be honest, I feel like they're just gonna get in the way with some of the work that I have coming up. And to be fair, I wanna get prices on brand new bolts and hardware for them. I'd rather replace it. I know it's one-time use, stretch bolts, blah, blah, blah. The bolts actually don't look that corroded. However, I just want to get some pricing. If they're cheap enough, I'll replace all the hardware in the process. So that's it really for today, to be honest. Just removed, all the wheels. It's all on jack stands at the moment. The CVs are out ready to go off and get repaired. The subframe's all coated up, the knuckles coated up. You'll notice I haven't done anything with the shock. Well, again, that's going to get replaced with some coilovers in the very near future. Don't plan to go too low, so the sway bar has stayed in there. And we'll give the brakes a bit of a wire brush and a coat of black brake caliper paint when I do the pads and rotors. And yeah, we're just gonna make this thing look really, really nice and really, really clean. Because I know I say it a lot, but I really can't see myself getting rid of this car anytime soon. Not only do you very, very rarely find Mark IVs this clean, but my God, you don't find them in a 6-speed manual turbo diesel. This thing is a long-term keeper, I can feel it. With that said though, timing belt yet to go in, injector seals yet to go in, a set of suspension, CVs to go back in, axles to go back on. Sorry, that's the same thing. I mean, control arms to go back in, brakes and rotors all around. There are parts that I have to throw at this car, and there's some that I need to go order. So I'm gonna go do that now. I hope you've enjoyed just a little update on the Golf. I've also started an Instagram as well, which I'm just gonna post and share some stuff on. So if you wanna jump over there and support it, as well as just getting a bit more of a glimpse of the stuff that I'm doing out in the shed here, feel free to jump over there and to see what's going on.